Welcome to Bounce Back Stronger, the podcast that explores ways to find peace and purpose no matter what happens. And today we have author and psychologist Crystal Jackson with us. A little bit about Crystal. Crystal's personal essays connect women from all walks of life, creating a community where humor, honesty, and vulnerability reign supreme. In a world where being seen and heard is not always guaranteed, especially these days, she has crafted a space where women feel understood and acknowledged. Her words have graced the pages of renowned platforms such as Medium, Thought Catalog, Elite Daily, Your Tango, and Elephant Journal, as well as the pages of her Heart of Madison contemporary romance series. But Crystal Jackson is not just a writer, she's a therapist who brings a unique perspective to the intersection of mental health, relationships, and personal development. And I've been a longtime follower of your work, Crystal, and I'm so glad to have you back on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here.
And last Valentine's Day, we had you on for an episode called The Unexpected Joy of Being Single, which was counter programming for Valentine's Day. And I will tell you, initially it didn't do that great, but it is one of the more popular episodes. I figured it would be because I think the idea of enjoying being single hits a nerve for a lot of people. And then after everything's been happening with the election and your recent pieces about decentering men and pick me societal structures and self prioritization, I just really wanted to have you on again for a second Valentine's Day episode to kind of cover these topics, which I think a lot of women are thinking about today.
Well, and I think that it's assumed that we're not happy single, that single is a state that you want to change. So, really embracing it and choosing it really does run counter to the kind of societal mandates. You hear from as young as puberty, you're supposed to find a partner. And so to be in my 40s and have absolutely no interest in that, it's been very, very interesting. But yeah, there's definitely a wave of women who are opting out of dating and relationships right now. And I think it's honestly, I think it's wonderful to see.
Yeah, I didn't know about the 4B movement, which I might just take a moment here. So this is a movement that happened in Korea. The B's are B words in Korean, but they stand for no sex, no giving birth, no dating men, no marriage with men. So it's a real response to the experience that women have had in Korea. However, after the election, people started picking that up here. Obviously, a difficult thing to probably put into practice. Let's just lay that out, at least for some of us. But interesting nonetheless. And I think you wrote a piece called Decentering Men, which I think might be a really interesting thing to talk about.
Well, I had never heard of the 4B movement either until the election. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden it's extremely prevalent. And I read about it a little bit, but I already have children.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
been married, I'm divorced. So I kind of started looking into the broader picture of where do I fit in with
Hmm.
something like 4B, if that is an initiative that I wanted to take. And I did a lot of reading and I came across the idea of just decentering men because 4B in some ways still centers men. It's
Hmm.
still, we don't date them, we don't marry them, we don't have
Hmm.
children with them, there's we don't have sex with them. So it's still about them. What I
Hmm.
like about decentering men is it takes them out of the equation. It's not about them. It's
Hmm.
about us. This isn't a punishment of men, it's a response. And some of that response is the way that men are voting, the way that they're thinking, and the way that they're treating women. So a lot of women are taking a step back and saying, I don't want this in my life. Where decentering men comes in is it's just not about them. So how we dress, how we present ourselves, how we interact in society, it's not for the male gaze. It's not for male approval or validation. It takes them out of the equation entirely as far as like you just live your life, you focus on yourself. You don't center them in the topic of conversation. It really appealed to me on a lot of levels
Hmm.
because it's just thinking about going to the grocery store and not putting on makeup or fixing your hair. There's kind of a thing in the back of your mind where you think about how you'll be perceived. But we're really not thinking about how we'll be perceived to other women because, frankly, other women of any sexuality generally don't care.
Hmm.
It's the men who might pass judgment. And you learn from so young an age to present yourself in what is considered an attractive way. So if I go to the store looking like a bog witch that just rolled out of bed, how will I look to potentially an attractive member of the opposite sex? And so that gets internalized so young. So I like the idea of just taking them out of the picture and really starting to focus on what we want. And some of what we want is to not be involved with people who don't see our rights as basic human rights, whether
Hmm.
that's reproductive rights or just the right to be able to be in public without being commented on or
Hmm.
touched, or just all the ways that women are generally harassed that is accepted by
Objectified.
society. Yeah, so I think it's a good alternative to people who don't feel like 4B is something that they can really stick with, or they don't feel like they fit the picture. Like they've had kids or they're in a relationship and they want to be a part of a movement and they want that solidarity with other women. It's kind of hard to do that if you're in a healthy relationship and then 4B comes along. It
Right.
also leaves out men who are actually really strong allies to women, not the ones who just pay lip service to the idea, but the ones who are actively on our side. I think it leaves them out. And frankly, I think in some ways it leaves out lesbians and bisexual and pansexual people who they're not only having sex with men, and it's not men only that are the problem. Some women are
Right.
problematic. So I think just decentering men really just destabilizes some of society in what I see as a really positive way because it doesn't make it about them. So it's really fascinating to me.
It is fascinating. And did you write the piece about pick me?
Yes.
Yes. So talk a little bit about that. I related to that.
Yeah, of course. I am a Grey's Anatomy fan. I had a former partner really got me into binge watching that show. There's so much trauma from all the characters lost along the way of loving that show. And
Yeah.
any Grey's Anatomy fan is with me on that and can immediately call to mind people. But there's this pivotal scene where Meredith Grey says, pick me, choose me, love me.
Mhm.
And even the actress talks about how humiliating that was to be put in the position of even having to say that to a man and pretending it was so hard for her. But the reality is, a lot of us say that with our actions. And for a long time, I was so concerned with being chosen and
Mhm.
being loved by someone else that I really wasn't choosing me, or I wasn't thinking about actively choosing them because I was so concerned with this pick me energy. And I think it does a lot of negative things. I think it makes us treat other women like competition and enemies. I
Yep.
think it makes us self sacrifice in ways that aren't healthy. I think that it's back to that centering men. It's like
Mhm.
we want them to pick us so bad, or we want a partner to pick us so much that we're willing to give up pieces of ourselves until there's not a lot left. And for me, it came to that point where I had put all of this pick me energy into this relationship that in the end didn't work out. And I didn't understand it. I couldn't understand how something that felt so right to me didn't feel right to the other person. And when it ended, I finally realized how much of myself I'd given away.
Mhm.
And what really was upsetting to me is I felt like I had done that in my marriage and I thought I had learned my lesson. And then I get back out there and I fall in love and I fall right back into it again. And that was really hard. It was really hard to say, like, oh man, I fell back into that pick me energy. And I wasn't thinking, do I choose this person? Do I like how I feel in this relationship as it is now with no changes? I was just giving things up. And a lot of that was authenticity, being
Mhm.
honest about what was happening in the relationship because I was walking on eggshells at that point.
Yeah, and I think these things go together, as you said. I think we may not realize we've been doing it our whole lives. I don't think I got it, really, for a long time, how much I was buying into that idea of I want to be the one that's picked. I want to be the one that's noticed. I think that we get trained in that a bit. So then when you start to not care about that as much, and which is part of decentering yourself, right? You're just not going to worry about what, and then think there's a relief to it, but it's also like, then who are you? Who are you when you stop
Yeah.
doing that?
Well, and I think it was a gradual process, even though that breakup pushed me a lot. It was a really gradual process of seeing the little ways in
Mm.
which I had given myself up because nobody was asking me to do it. I wasn't with a partner who was demanding that. I just naturally did that to keep the peace, to keep the relationship, to keep things going. And afterwards, I kind of had to look around and say, like, who am I now? Who am I in the future? Now that this relationship isn't a part of it, what does my life look like? And having to
Yeah.
reimagine all of it. And then the next time that I got out into a dating world, it was interesting that I was choosing. And I think it
Mm.
may have been the first time in my life that I was dating in that very intentional way of having conversations. And when I would see that someone was not a good match for me, I didn't get emotional about it. I wasn't unkind about it, but I could say, like, hey, this isn't really working. I can see that we're not a good fit. And I moved so much more easily through all of those interactions because I wasn't waiting for them to pick me. A
Mhm.
lot of them would have, but they would have done it at their own expense because they would have been giving something up, and I could see that. They just weren't good fits. So it was interesting how it changed my perspective. And I don't think I'd ever dated like that before. It really was like, I like this person. I want this person to pick me, and I will make it work. I will
Yes.
make myself fit into this mold. And I feel like we do it in jobs, we do it in
Mm.
relationships, we do it in so many family contexts that I don't think that we see ourselves. Like, I wouldn't have said I was a pick me girl. I've
Mm-mm.
always been very independent. I've always been a feminist. I
Me
would
too.
not have seen myself that way. And it was absolutely true
Mhm.
because that's the programming of living in a patriarchal society is you want to be picked,
Yes.
you know?
You wanna be picked. Well, and it was interesting, somebody said to me the other day, like, "Why do you always dress up when you go out?" I'm like, "Because you kinda have to as a woman. To get any respect, you do have to do that." And I was asked by, a white male, and they don't have to do that.
No,
You
they
know?
don't even have to like do anything with their hair. They can,
Mm-mm.
even men with a full head of hair can just roll out.
Yep.
For
But
women,
n but I can't do that. I mean, I've done it. I mean, like, I had the experience, so I used to travel all the time for work, so I always was dressed, for a meeting in a suit, and I remember not dressing that way with my kids. So I was with my kids, so I was a mom, and I had all this priority on the airline and everything, but they treated me completely differently. And I remember that moment going, "Oh, it's because 'cause I'm with my kids and I'm dressed differently." And even though I have all this priority on this airline, you don't care because I'm not dressed the way that you respect, and I'm a mom. So it is really real. I still dress up for things because if I know I need to get something done, I'm going to have to look a certain way. It's not worth it to me to have that disconnect because I need to get something done,
well,
which is
I
sad but
don't think,
true. And we are white. I mean, so let's just
yes.
let's just say we have a bunch of privilege right there. So it's been really eye-opening, I think, in a lot of different ways, these realizations for me at least.
Oh, absolutely. And there are those layers of privilege that even as a white woman, you still, there's
Mm,
so much that you have to do to present yourselves. Where maybe a man puts on a suit or a nice collared shirt, but he doesn't have to do makeup and he doesn't have to
mm,
spend a lot of time on like hair or even facial grooming anymore. They can really just go out into the world. They're
mhm,
given respect simply because they're men in a patriarchal society.
mhm.
Women get a lot of disrespect when we go out. And I
Yep,
think that's
yep.
hard for men to understand that we go out with an entirely different perspective and how we operate in the world. It's the putting the keys in your knuckles going out to your car in a parking garage. Women
Mhm,
think like that all the time. And it's
mhm,
not that we're paranoid and suspicious, it's we're dealing with real world realities and being cautious because of that. And it's smart. And even the smart girls become victims. I don't think men realize the layers that we have to go to. And I think it's really healthy for women right now, taking men out of the picture and saying, well, what do I want my life to look like? I think I have a lot of freedom because I am freelance for the most part.
mhm.
That when I go out, I do dress more the way that I want to dress. I present myself more the way I want to present myself because I'm not really held to a particular dress code or corporate environment. It has made some changes in the way that I present myself. But you're right, you still have to kind of put yourself together in a certain way depending on the context of the business you're going to conduct. I just think it's a sad reality for most women.
Hmm. I do. I do. So maybe we move into the consumerism piece that you
Yeah.
did, which I think is really related there. I think we as women get sold a lot of stuff. Like if you look at your Instagram feed, right? And I'm really trying this year, for a lot of reasons, trying not to spend money. That's a thing to see how little of a footprint I can make in terms of spending. And it is amazing how much I get sold all the time. Let's talk a little bit about that piece that you did.
So I had an upper respiratory infection for like 15 days through the holiday.
Ugh.
So all of Christmas, all of New Year's, and it gave me a lot of time to think about things. And of course, I'm laying in my bedroom, which at the time was very messy, and I could like feel my closet on the other side of the room judging me because I know that the laundry is piling up, particularly as I'm sick for a couple of weeks and I'm not doing any of it. But to be honest, it's been like that for a while. And so when I started to feel a little bit better, I went and sat in the floor of my closet and just sorted. If I haven't worn it recently, if I put it on and then immediately take it off because I don't really like how it fits or how it looks or how I feel in it, those are the things I started putting away. And I've decided I was going to set them aside for a little while and then give them away to friends or donate or whatever. But I'm going through this closet. And even when I'm done, the massive amount of clothes is just a perfect example of overconsumption. It would take me a really long time to wear every single item that I own in my closet. And
Yep.
what's funny is when I finished this big, huge sort, I decided I needed a dress because I go to these work events that are kind of fancy and I have all of these little shawls and cardigans and different things that I can put on and all these little kimonos, but I needed another dress. No, I don't need another dress. Look, there are so many dresses hanging, but it's funny because that's where my mind went is I got
Hmm.
out of that awful messy closet and I bought a dress. And then I added a shirt to the cart so I could get free shipping. Free shipping. It's not free. I just added a shirt to pay for it and I didn't need another shirt. And then it really made me sit down and evaluate my relationship with the whole big picture of consumerism, not just fast fashion, which is something I've been looking at for a while and
Hmm.
trying to switch to more sustainable, eco friendly brands, fair trade, vegan
Hmm.
brands that care about their impact, thrifting clothes, getting it used. Like I'm thinking of all those things. But the reality is, I don't need any more clothes for a really long time. But you can't go on social media without swiping through so many ads because they follow everything that you do online. They're
Yep.
targeted to you. So I keep getting the same ad for this red light facial massager thing that's supposed to like remove fine lines and wrinkles and take the water weight out of the neck area so that you look slimmer, and it's in a very attractive ad, and I watch it
Hmm.
over and over again, and different brands keep popping up for me in case one of them works. And I've done the research, and the research says this doesn't work. There's not really a correlation. It's in your head. If you have any progress at all, it might be because you're just taking better care of your skin during
Hmm.
that.
Or drinking a lot of water, which tends
Drinking
to help
drinking a
really a
lot of
lot.
water. Well, you
Because I don't
moisturize
do
before
enough
you
of it
put it on.
myself. Yeah.
Yeah, so you moisturize before you put it on, so it's one of those things where you're gonna be moisturizing more, maybe your skin looks better. So, I know that it doesn't work, but how many times did I sit there and watch that ad and think about it? How many times did I click on it and look at the price before going, "Absolutely not," and coming back out? But the thing is I don't need it, and I
Yeah.
have products that are sort of similar to that because they like to sell women anti-aging. They wanna sell us youth that they're wanna scare us into thinking we need. They wanna sell us something that makes us appealing to whoever we date.
Hmm.
They want us to lose weight. There is a yoga app that looks so neat, and I'm so angry with them because every ad is about do this somatic yoga for weight loss.
Hmm.
Not so that you feel better about yourself, not so that you can embrace the entire yoga lifestyle. It's so that you can
To
get skinny,
lose weight. Yep.
trim your waistline with this somatic yoga. And I have left so much feedback and so many comments that they have deleted because it comes up for me. And I know it's coming up more because I'm engaging, but they're trying to sell us something we don't really need. They're trying to say, you have a problem, we can fix it. You're getting old, let's remove those wrinkles. Are you putting on weight? You don't need to do that. Here's how to take it off. But the whole point is for them to make money. And
Hmm.
they can't make money if we don't feel like we need anything. If we feel like I've got everything I need, they can't sell us something.
Or if it doesn't relate it to some sort of basic kind of thing that we of lack, this basic lack
Yeah.
that we feel. Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
swear,
It's a
if they,
self esteem issue.
yeah, it's totally self-esteem. And I swear if they said meditation would help you lose weight, I think people would meditate. I think they should try that. Just I don't really care, but they
Hey,
should try it.
well, honestly, the stress relief probably does have a
It
positive
does.
cortisol response and you could lose weight. But the fact that a
I mean, it'd
yoga
be
app,
wrong, and no
yeah, oh,
self-respecting meditation teacher would do that. But like, I wish they would, so that people would start to
well,
meditate more.
and frankly, it's a good marketing ploy and it's an effective one because I'm thinking up until this point in my life where I'm just a hard no on all these sales tactics, it worked
Yeah,
for me
I
for a
agree.
long time. I've done a
Yeah.
lot of these. And
Hmm.
I would do them hoping I would lose weight or hoping that these other benefits would come in. And frankly, and this was something that was really hard for me to admit for a while, but I am at my highest weight. I am at a higher weight than I was at when I was pregnant with my child who was almost 9 pounds. And I was a thin girl growing up and would get criticized for that. And then in my
Mm.
20s, I started putting on weight and I'd get criticized for that. And I feel really comfortable in my own skin right now because it's not about the number on the scale. And I will say this last year I haven't been exercising as much. And it is something I want to get back to because I like the way it makes me feel. But I don't want
Right.
to step on any more scales outside of a doctor's office. If I could bypass that, I would.
Me
I
too.
don't wanna look at I don't wanna look at the number. I don't wanna
Hmm.
try to get to a different clothing size. I just wanna love my body as it is, and that's such a revolutionary idea for women because we're told, "Oh, you've put on weight, you don't need to do that." And then they wanna list all of these health reasons, but let's be honest, it's not really about health,
Hmm.
because if it was about health, they would be looking at other measures of how you're nurturing your body through what you eat, your lifestyle, your stress level, all these other factors. They don't care about that. They care about the number and what size you are. And that's not the same as health. So it's been really
Hmm.
revolutionary for me to be like, yeah, no, I acknowledge the weight. It's there. It was an adjustment at first. And now I'm like, I'm not going to be suckered into some kind of scheme that tries to make me feel bad about myself so that I'll buy their product.
Good for you. Yeah. Well, I think yeah, maybe this is taking us into the self-prioritization piece that you did too. We've been talking a lot about all these outside factors that drive us to act in certain ways and not put ourselves first. Maybe there's something there to talk more about as how do we prioritize ourselves and what we really need as opposed to what everybody else thinks and thinks. I guess that's it, what everybody else thinks.
Well, and I think a lot of that is living really intuitively. Like they talk about intuitive eating. You eat till you
Hmm.
feel full, you eat things that make your body feel good. There's really a lot of intuitive living to it and making those really intentional choices about what feels good, what things serve us and what doesn't. And for me, when I took that future relationship out of the equation and the future was going to look different because I
Mm.
wasn't in that relationship anymore, I started thinking about more of what I want. And it was such a surprising journey for me because I ended up with chickens. I'm raising chickens, hens for eggs, something I never saw coming and absolutely love. I have this beautiful garden that I just keep growing bigger and bigger because I enjoy it so much. I joke that these are all my granny hobbies. Just skipping that midlife crisis and getting right into my all my good granny stuff because it's fun and because when you get to that point, you just do what you want to do and you do the
Yeah.
things you enjoy.
Yeah, Michael Singer, I was listening to his podcast. I don't know if you remember The Untethered Soul. I don't know if you've read that
Yeah.
one, but yeah. So he's got a podcast and he was saying, he says, I don't know why people get so upset about getting old. He says, it's the best. I don't care what anybody thinks. I say whatever I want to say. He says, it's the best part of life. And I
Look,
really kind of had to laugh because I think I haven't gotten there yet, but I think, you know what I mean? I haven't been able to, disassociate enough to do that yet, but I get it. I get it that it could be
I
really awesome.
I feel like I'm getting there because, like, first came the chickens, and then I really thought after the pandemic, we all women agreed that we weren't gonna wear bras anymore. I'm real disappointed a bunch of people put them back on, and it's like, if you need it for support and you like it, that's fine, but for all the women who hate it, thought we had an agreement, right? And it's so controversial. My mom hates it that I'm like that because I mean, I'll roll out to whatever, work, whatever. And I'm like, half the time, I'm not wearing one unless I want to be. And it's just so funny because that's such a thing. And I'm like, every time someone challenges me, I said, the next book I'm gonna write is gonna be a children's book called Everybody Has Nipples. There probably is one like that,
I thought you would
but
do something
I
after the chickens. Here, where everything went after the chickens. That's what you should write
right, but
your book.
no, that's it's so funny that that's kind of like it
Mm.
that I have, my little feral chickens. I'm like a free range chicken, kind of out on my own working. So,
I
but
love it though.
it's little things like that.
Mm.
Like I putter around in my garden and I really enjoy that, and I really don't care that much what other people think. It's doesn't really affect me. I'm like, that sounds like a you problem. That's about your journey. It's not about
Mhm.
mine.
Mm.
I've
Which is a
gotten
really good
really
way of looking at it.
yeah, and it's just funny, but it's other things too, and this is gonna make me sound even crazier, but it's like I rescued 2 cats this summer, and my friends are like, "You have a dog, 10 chickens, and 2 cats already. You don't need 2 more cats." But I was like, "But I do in my heart. I needed them." And then the breeder that I had gotten my dog from gave me a puppy that I wasn't expecting. So, yes, if you add that up, I'm not gonna mention the number, but that's a lot of animals, and I love it, and the
Yeah.
responsibility doesn't bother me. I enjoy it. It's really fulfilling to me. I can manage that well in my household. But a lot of my friends were like, "You don't need them. This is crazy." Because and I see what they mean. If I were to meet someone, I would have to tell them how many pets I have, and maybe that would be a problem. But am I gonna live my life on the off chance that I meet a person who I like, but who doesn't like animals? That doesn't even sound
But
like it.
I think when they don't like animals, I think that they're out. I don't
That's
know.
yeah, that's the big
I
red
think that's
flag
it.
for well, when I was talking about getting my chickens, I was still dating at the time, and somebody was like, "Oh, no, I grew up on a farm. I don't wanna manage a farm." And I'm like, "Nobody asked you. I didn't ask your
Mhm.
opinion about if I should get chickens. I was telling you something about me. I wasn't asking you to weigh in on my decision." But I think we do that. I think we kind of live
Mhm.
in ways that are still thinking about that. And so since I've taken that off the table and it's not something I'm planning on, not saying it couldn't happen, but I'm not planning on that. I make those decisions for me.
Yeah.
Like eventually my kids are going to leave home and I'm going to be an empty nester and a single parent. I'm going to have all of these animals that love me and
Mhm.
that I love and enjoy spending time around. When my kids go to their dads for weekends, I have my animals. And I know that seems like a small part of it, but it's making those
It's huge.
decisions because it's what I want and not
Mhm.
factoring in the fact that probably 90% of my friends think I'm a little crazy now or because they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't want that responsibility. But taking that out of the equation and taking what a future man might think about my menagerie of animals out of the picture
Yep.
and really leaning into the things I love, which turns out are chickens and gardening and reading so much and going down all these rabbit holes on like herbal gardens and being a more sustainable human while I'm on this earth and watching the shows that I like and not worrying about if anybody else watches them or likes them. It's taking all of that off the table and saying, like, who am I? Who am I when no one's
Mhm.
watching? Who am I when I'm not in a relationship to someone else as a parent or a friend? What do I like and what do I want? And I don't think a lot of women ask themselves that because they're stuck in that routine of who am I to other people? What do they want from me? What do they expect of me?
It's not even men, right? It's your kids too. It's like all of it. Especially as your kids get older, I still find myself saying, "Okay, well, what if I do this, then I can hang out with them, but maybe I have this other thing that I would be doing otherwise that's very important to me. So I need to prioritize myself somewhere in here because you feel it later, right? Because you get that resentment thing. Look, oh, I should have done with the thing that I wanted to do because now I resent it. So I think it's a constant thing. I think it's not just men. I think it's in general. Like I think we just aren't really taught really well to put our needs first.
No, we're told to take care of everyone else first.
Yeah. 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 Put that
And to
oxygen
think of
mask on
everyone
them.
else. And
It's what we're told to do, is to
yes.
put it on them.
Well,
That's why they have to
really, and
put that
like,
in the front of every flight because we'll do
yeah,
it.
because you're so busy constantly thinking of other people because that is
Mhm.
how women are taught to be. We're taught to caretake. And then
Mhm.
we're told that that's biological when we know that's not actually true. Men can caretake also. Anyone can. We're just told that it's our responsibility.
I think we also internalize that we'll get left behind if we don't. There's those basic things, right, that we fear as humans. I think that there's
Yeah.
somewhere in there.
Oh, absolutely. Or that we'll end up alone. And not everyone has a comfortable relationship with solitude either. And that's
Mhm.
something to really acknowledge because we do need other people. I'm very fortunate in my life not to just have friends that live close by that are great supportive friends, but to feel like I have friends like all over the world, all over the country, and
Mhm.
people I talk to, so many friends I've never met an actual person, but that are supportive and that I could reach out to. There are a
Mhm.
lot of lonely people out there who don't have the
Mhm.
social support, and maybe they don't have the people online, and maybe they don't have the people in their actual day-to-day lives. And so when it comes to that, it gets really easy to lean on romantic relationships when you
Mhm.
don't have the support.
And this is a great time as we are kind of processing things that have happened to reach out to other people that are like-minded, that are supportive of you and supportive of your beliefs. I'm just finishing editing a podcast with Sharon Salzberg, and that I said, wouldn't that be the wonderful turn if the outcome of some of what's happened is that we actually find each other again after the pandemic, because that certainly was an isolator, and we were already lonely before that, according to the Surgeon General. So it's something I'm
Well, and
hopeful
I
for.
found so post-election, I just really wanted to scream, and I mean that literally. I wanted to scream
I did. I
and
did.
keep well, I did too, but here's what I did is I said, I feel like I need to go out in like open space, maybe a bonfire and some friends, and we just all scream. We just scream until we're done and just let it all out because I feel like I cannot be the only one who feels this way. And it was just this thing in my mind. And I started talking to a few people, and every woman I mentioned it to said, absolutely. Every
Yep.
man I mentioned it to mentioned that I might be a little crazy. Um,
Exactly.
but
I need to
but the
manage my anger.
women, yes, but the women were like, absolutely, that is
Absolutely.
exactly how I feel. And then some were like, wait, wait, wait. Are we actually screaming? Or are we just saying we're doing? And I'm like, no, 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 no. We're going to get actual screams, primal, guttural, whatever screams. Scream however you want. Scream bad words. I don't care what you scream. Screaming.
Hmm.
So one friend offered up her home, and she said, all my neighbors, they're not close. The ones who are would be cool with it. I'll clear it with them and tell them from this time to this time, if you hear screaming, there's not an emergency.
Please
And
don't
so
call
we
the
headed
police.
over, and everyone brought drinks and snacks. And we sat around, and I thought we were going to do some screaming first, but we didn't because we sat around and talked about how we felt about everything and about the need for stronger community right now and to really build these relationships because this is a fairly newer friend. And I love her so much. She's just one of those people that you instantly want to be friends with and you think this is a cool person that I would vibe with. And luckily, she felt the same about me. But some of the people that I invited were people I didn't know that well, but knew were like minded enough that I wanted them to come. And so we talked about building stronger support. And then we did a lot of screaming. There was screaming, but there was dancing and there was laughing and there was joy.
Hmm.
And there was screaming too, where we just got it all out. But that just cemented for me that need for strong community and connection right now more than ever.
Hmm.
And that, as a result of that night, I was recommended the book Braiding Sweetgrass, which I don't know if you've ever read that.
No, I did see that you had it. You loved it?
Oh, I love
Okay.
it so
Braiding
much.
Sweetgrass. I'm going to write it down.
And I'm not usually a big nonfiction reader.
Yep.
As easily as I read fiction, I can read fiction in a day. Nonfiction just takes me longer to get through because I want to process it more.
Yep.
And it's really about having more of a reciprocal relationship with the environment. but it
Mm.
also brings community into that when you see everything as being equal to you, you have more of a give and take relationship. And it brings in a lot of indigenous wisdom and,
Yeah, yeah.
plant medicine and things. And it was so beautiful. But I read that at a time where I was already thinking, we need more community. And it was really interesting to read about things like the term Indian giver, where white people thought that meant, you gave a gift and you try to take it back. And so I had always heard that growing up. And it was funny because she explains in the book that it was a massive cultural misunderstanding where if they gave something, they expected it to be used, and I might butcher this interpretation, but they expected it to be used for the good of the community.
Mm.
That if you're given something, you use it to help or you give it back later. It's not about, I gifted this to you, give me back my gift. It's about they expect it to continue to do good in the world because it doesn't just stop there. And it made me think of the first time that I went out of the country. I went to Ireland, and we do that. Find a penny, pick it up all day
Hmm.
long. You'll have good luck. Well, they don't stop there. They say, pass it to a friend, and then your luck will never end.
Mm.
And at the time, I was in my late 30s. I never heard that because in America, we take that penny and put it in our pocket.
We
They
do.
pass it on. It's a cultural difference, and I think it reflects a
Mm.
lot of what America has become, that we put the penny in the pocket. We call someone an Indian giver because they expect us not to hoard things, but to share them,
Hmm. To give back.
and it
To
just
give.
kind of really pulled that whole idea of community and connection and being a person other people can lean on and you can lean back because it's a reciprocal relationship. And I know that's kind of a long way around, but those things all kind of came together for me at the same time and made me think, if nothing else, maybe this pulls us together stronger than ever before and we come out the other side of it completely different, changed in a way we might not have been otherwise, and that maybe that we needed because all of these women saying, I need 4B, I want to decenter men, I need to choose for myself, and then finding like minded people. I think that this could be really important for the next stage of human evolution and change.
It could really help our kids and our generation, but our generations, mine, I think I'm ahead of you. But my generation, your generation, our kids' generations, I think is an important discussion to have, which I don't think we were having it in any large way before this. Well, I think I'm going to stop there.
Okay, I love that.
Thank you so, so much for
Well,
all of your wisdom and all of your writing. And folks, she has an amazing Facebook community,
it's like the
wonderful
greatest,
memes.
most inclusive community. Yes, everyone's there for the memes and a little
Yep.
bit, tiny bit of my writing. They're the most inclusive, wonderful, hilarious people. I love them.
Yeah, it is a great group. Well, thank you so much, Crystal Jackson.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
That's all for today. If you want to learn more about Crystal, her books, and writing, those links will be in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. If it was, please subscribe, drop a review, or share it with your friends and family. That's the best way to get it in the hands of those who may benefit. And if my daughters, Sienna and Sylvia, are listening, I want you to know how proud I am of you, and I love you so much. Bye now.